Good afternoon. We're back with another Marvel Snap video, and today we'll be discussing the March 21st, 2023 patch notes, and then I will update my Series 3 tier list and give updated recommendations for which decks are the best for new players who are new to Pool 3 anyway. So let's dive right into it. We've got more tokens. Players who have not yet finished Series 3 will acquire 4 times more tokens. That's great. And Series 3 cards have been separated into their own shop section. You get 1 free Series 3 card per month. Let's take a look at that. So we've got the token shop where I have King the Conqueror pinned, and then the Series 3 cards, and you can choose one of these per month. They refresh every 8 hours. I am currently holding out for Daredevil. I have 13 cards left to acquire. I'd really like Daredevil so that I can play some control decks. So I'm going to pass on Taskmaster. Cards dropping from Series 5 to Series 4. Zabu, Sauron, Shana, Dazzler, and Shadow King. Series 4 to Series 3. M'Baku, Orca, and Attuma. New card sounds. New location sounds. Thanos has VFX, along with all of the Infinity Stones. Balance. The unscheduled changes to Zabu and Silver Surfer made the metagame shift for the last month more difficult for us to predict, and we weren't able to make timely adjustments for technical reasons. In that time, Thanos became one of our most dominant decks yet. Yeah, they made him one of the most dominant decks because they buffed him from 8 power to 11 after he was already near the top of the meta. His weak matchups versus Zabu and Surfer had really been holding him back. Unintended consequences of nerfs. Shuri-based decks were another big winner here, and both of these archetypes have exceeded our tolerances for game balance. This patch's adjustments are aimed at restoring order and weakening each of them. Alright, well, let's see how they did. Thanos, 6'11 to 6'10. We increased Thanos' power in a previous patch that was built during a time when Zabu and Surfer were suppressing the success of Thanos-based decks. We're happy to keep him at 9 power, but for Shang-Chi's sake, but given his... So they nerfed Zabu and Surfer and then didn't wait to see how that would affect Thanos before they buffed him. That's like what they did with the Darkhawk too. They nerfed Zabu, and then they didn't wait to see how that would affect the Darkhawk before scheduling a nerf for Darkhawk, which they then implemented 2 weeks later after it had become very obvious that it wasn't needed. But nonetheless, they decided to go through with it. We thought it appropriate to pull back on that buff just a touch. The change won't dramatically impact the success of Thanos decks, as most of the strength is in the stone interactions. I don't disagree with that. That's a mostly irrelevant change. Space Stone on reveal. Next turn you can move 1 card at this location, whereas before you could move the 1 card from the location. That's a good change. This is among the strongest stones in Thanos decks due to its ability to create bonus lockjaw triggers. Yep. Quinjet now reduces costs to a minimum. We'll talk about all of these changes because these top 3 are all aimed at Thanos. So we'll talk about where Thanos is at after the Quinjet. Now reduces costs to a minimum of 1. That's expected. Cost reduction is powerful, and Quinjet was one of very few cards capable of reducing multiple cards. Energy cost is 0. While we've enjoyed this interaction in some cases, such as the Hood, ultimately it creates both an ongoing risk for future design space as well as fueling the dominance of Thanos decks of today. Well, if they'd wanted to hit only Thanos and not the Hood, they could have just said that the stones count as starting in your deck and therefore don't get the Quinjet buff. Then they would have hit Thanos but not the Hood at all. But see, I think they wanted to hit the Hood too, despite what they said here, because the deck that I played up to Infinite this season relied on that Quinjet dropping the Hood's token to 0. And it was dominant against Thanos. I found it very, very strong against Thanos. And if they had made it so the stones didn't get the Quinjet, but the hood still benefited from it, then it would have really cratered Thanos, and I don't think they wanted to do that because Thanos is a Series 5 card and they want people to buy the Series 5 cards. So yeah, they nerfed Thanos. They also cratered a deck that was good against Thanos. So where's the Thanos deck going to be at now? He's 6'10", Space Stone nerfed, Quinjet doesn't reduce the stones to 0. I do think this drops the Thanos deck by a tier or 2. Probably not at the top of the meta anymore. However, one of the decks that countered him, featuring the hood or the bounce, and the bounce deck also got cratered as well. And that kind of sucks because that deck wasn't that good, but it was fun. So this does hit Thanos, I think, but he'll still be okay. They didn't hit Lockjaw at all. I'm kind of surprised by that. I thought they would. I thought they might hit Lockjaw. Yeah, I think this does effectively nerfs Thanos by a little bit. Now, I could be... I don't think I'm wrong about it not being at the top of the meta anymore, because Quinjet really, really helped the stones. And so, yeah, I'd say this is an okay deck now. It's not going to be anything special, I don't think. Maybe like a B-, C+ type of deck. So, Red Skull gets a nerf. So we're on to the Shuri deck nerfs. Red Skull 515 to 513, but he only gives +1 power to other cards. Wait, is that even a nerf? So if there was one card on the board, assuming his ability isn't silenced, if the opponent had one card on the board, he's essentially at 513 in his old version. In his new one, he'd be a 512. So that's a nerf of 1 power if there's one card on the board for the opponent. If there's 2 cards on the board, his old version would have been a 511, and his new version is a 511. So it's not a nerf at all if there's 2 cards on the board. If there's 3 on the board, he's actually better than he was before. If there's 4 on the board, he's better than he was before. When with Shuri, he's gone from a 513 to a 526, but the opponent's power at the location is reduced from, by 1 per character. What's the difference between a 530 and a 526? There's no difference. So the only way that would be a nerf when combined with Shuri is if there was some other card that was at or combination that was at 26 power or 27 power, and Red Skull was nerfed so that other card became the better card to play. That isn't the case. 526 is still... So for your 9 energy, your Shuri and your Red Skull cost 9 energy, you get 528, where you used to get 532. Come on, developers. Are you serious? That's not a nerf. That isn't anything. In fact, if anything, you've made it more consistent. The only situation where it's worse is it's slightly worse with Shuri by 4 power, which doesn't matter because there's no difference between a 530 and a 526. And then with Zero, he's slightly worse than before. With Zero, before you got 6 power for 6 cost for 18 power. Now you've got 6 cost for 16 power, which is still better than the best alternative, which is Destroyer at 6 cost 15 power. So also not really a nerf. A small nerf in some situations when played with Zero, but slightly more consistent and actually better when played without Zero or Shuri. That isn't anything. They needed to nerf it to 513 and leave the power buff for the opponent at +2, I think. As it is, that nerf isn't anything. That doesn't matter at all. In fact, arguably, in some situations, it's better than it was before. If that is really intended to hit Red Skull hard, that's some incompetent nerfing. I mean, yeah, that's not anything. This change is aimed at reducing the strength of combining Red Skull with Shuri and Taskmaster. It doesn't. Outside of these interactions, the change is mostly a buff to the base case usage for Red Skull, giving you 9 or 10 power at crowded locations. So you still can play Shuri into Red Skull. Red Skull will be 26 power, then you can copy it with the Taskmaster for 26 power. The difference between 26 power and 30 is negligible. It's so far above the next best play that that isn't anything. She-Hulk goes from 6'10 to 6'9. She-Hulk is a key component in the strongest Shuri decks, but it sees widespread play in various decks thanks to its strength along with Sunspot, Wave, and Moon Girl. We mostly think that's cool, but she's more powerful than she needs to be for those combos. What they mean is, I think, more powerful than a Series 3 card should be, because they didn't touch Shuri, the best card in the game. In addition, we want to encourage playing actively to locations rather than holding cards for explosive turn 6s. Yeah, they've been very clear that they don't want people playing combo decks. Okay, well, She-Hulk nerfed. That hurts the deck that I was playing this season a lot. That hurts Deathwave a lot. The She-Hulk Taskmaster Shuri combo that they were trying to nerf. So She-Hulk goes from 20 power to 18 power when combined with Shuri. So for your Taskmaster She-Hulk Shuri, it costs 6 mana. No, it costs 10 mana. And you get 36 power instead of 40. Still not anything. So functionally, with the She-Hulk nerf, they're nerfing Deathwave. They're nerfing Moon Girl combo with Sunspot. They're nerfing that free-to-play, or not free-to-play, but free-to-play friendly Infinite deck with Magic. And they're not really nerfing Shuri, because this doesn't do anything to Shuri, really. There's not much difference between 10 energy and 30 for 36 power, as opposed to 10 energy for 40 power. I am not in favor of these attempts to nerf Shuri. I don't think they really do nerf Shuri, to be honest. I think they nerf decks that could compete with Shuri, frankly. Those changes as attempts to nerf the Shuri deck are frankly bizarre. If you want to nerf Shuri, why wouldn't you just nerf Shuri? Like the actual card Shuri. Why? Except that they don't want to nerf their Series 4 or Series 5 cards. They're reluctant to do it. I think the only reason they nerfed Thanos is because they figure they got everybody to buy him who's going to, and now they want people to buy their other Series 5 cards. And Thanos was crowding them out, perhaps. But this is so strange. Like, we're concerned about the Shuri deck, but we're not going to nerf Shuri. And there are a couple of ways they could have done it. They could have said, like, she doesn't double the power of the next card played. She gives plus 5 power or plus 8 power. So what would have been reasonable? I think she doesn't double the next card played, but she gives plus 7 or 8 power. I think would have been very reasonable. Let's say 8 power, since it's a Series 4 card. I think that would have been a very, very good nerf for her. She doesn't double the next card played. She gives the next card played plus 8 power. I think that would have been a very good nerf. Would have opened up some interesting interactions with, like, Brood. But I think that makes things more interesting. I like combos. And it makes things like Red Skull not an issue anymore. Makes or like Destroyer or whatever. I think that would have been a very reasonable change to Shuri. And then you wouldn't need to hit She-Hulk at all. You could leave the She-Hulk as a free-to-play friendly staple for combo decks that can compete with higher cost decks. Higher cost meaning they cost more money to acquire. The way that they decided to nerf Shuri isn't really a nerf to Shuri at all. I think it's a nerf to the decks that competed with Shuri. Arrow, 5/7 on reveal. Move all enemy cards played to this location. She is now a 5/8. Move the last enemy card played this turn to this location. Well, rip Arrow. Sigh. Arrow is a tricky card for us, so we took a sledgehammer to it. The actual game balance for Arrow has been healthy, and she fulfills a vital role in our game by providing interaction, especially against dangerously polarizing cards like Galactus. It's important for Arrow to be versatile and strong in order to be a widely playable tech card, but we don't want her pushing the majority of other 5 cards out of decks. What other 5 cards is she pushing out? People still play Leech, Taskmaster, Red Skull, Spider-Woman sees play. Sarah sees play. Professor X. What are they talking about? Unfortunately, that's the behavior that we're seeing. Let me take a look at the other 5-cost cards and see which ones she might be pushing out. Alright, so we'll just go down the list. The 5-cost cards are Abomination. Sees play from time to time in Patriot, but people aren't going to play Abomination more because Arrow got nerfed. Black Bolt, that doesn't get played because it's a garbage card. Black Panther gets played, Blue Marvel gets played, Captain Marvel gets played, Dino gets played, Doc Ock gets played, Gamora gets played, Hobgoblin gets played, Iron Man, Jane Foster, King, Claw, Leech, all get played. MODOK gets played, Magic, Nick Fury doesn't get played, but it's not going to get played because Arrow got nerfed. Nimrod, same situation. Professor X, Red Skull, Ronin, now playable in Master Mold, Sandman, Sarah, Spider-Woman, Stature, Taskmaster, Valkyrie, Vision, and White Tiger. All of those see play in certain situations. What in the world are they talking about? We don't want her pushing the majority of other 5-cost cards out of the decks. That's not why they nerfed Arrow. Unless they really... I mean, that isn't why they nerfed her. Unfortunately, that's the behavior we're seeing. Arrow can also be frustrating to see, denying players the option to play their own endgames. That's why they nerfed Arrow. And the players that they don't want frustrated are players that paid for higher cost cards than Arrow. Because Arrow provided counterplay for Galactus. I think probably they're not happy about Arrow frustrating Galactus players. Because Arrow frustrating Galactus players will lead players who spent a lot of money to acquire Galactus to quit the game. Or players not to buy Galactus. And they don't want that. So I think that's probably why they did it. Not because she's pushing the majority of other 5-cost cards out of decks. That's silly. The change seeks to keep Arrow strong. Failed because she's not strong anymore. Foster more competition among 5-cost cards. Also failed. There isn't going to be like... The only reason this would cause 5-cost cards to be played more is if there was like a card that fulfilled the same function as Arrow in the 5 slot but didn't see a lot of play. 5-cost cards all serve a function. Arrow was like the only plug-and-play one, I want to say. Along with Red Skull. I think this will cause Red Skull to see more play. Maybe Spider-Woman. But Red Skull already saw a ton of play and Spider-Woman was already played. Anyway. Add counterplay. Yeah, they could have done that easily. All you needed to do with Arrow was change it so she pulls the cards in the order that they're played. She pulls all cards played this turn to her location in the order that they were played. So then you could have the counterplay but still have Arrow be quite strong and have her counter things like Galactus, So now all a Galactus player has to do, I suppose, is run Wasp. And Wasp will get pulled as the last card to be played, or Yellow Jacket, I think they already run in some of the decks. Mystique, Absorbing Man, and Taskmaster. These cards now require the previously played card to be in play in order to copy its attributes. Mystique. Okay, so Taskmaster can't copy a card if Shang-Chi has killed it, basically. Not that big of a problem for Shuri decks. They usually like to play their first big card on the Armor or Cosmo lanes, and if they can't do that, then this would only hurt the Shuri deck if they don't have initiative, and that will happen sometimes. So this will be a minor... This will be a nerf to the Shuri deck in some situations, where now if you Shang-Chi it, the Taskmaster won't be able to copy the big Red Skull or whatever. So that's a good change. I like that change. This adjustment is part balance, part matching expectations. A meaningful chunk of Taskmaster's strength is his ability to copy a card's power even if it's been destroyed. It's not a meaningful chunk with the way that people play Shuri decks, but it is a nerf to the Shuri deck, and a good change. It's a more intuitive change. Often gets reported as a bug, yeah, because it wasn't intuitive the way it worked before. So that's just flat out a good change. Morbius's power no longer updates in hand or in deck, only at a location. Okay, so this is like the Mr. Negative change that they were promising for Morbius and Null, where before you could buff those cards while they were in your deck, and then if you Mr. Negative, like if you had Null where you had destroyed 10 power, so Null was 10 power just sitting in your deck, and then you Mr. Negative, he would become 10 cost, which wasn't great. And so now he works properly with Mr. Negative, where you don't see the power until he comes out of the deck. So that's a good change. I'd call that a bug fix or a quality of life improvement. I don't know if that really enables any like Mr. Negative Null decks. Might try it out a little bit just for fun, but Widow's Bite inaccurately described its in-game effect. So they just simplified the text. Okay. And then there's a variety of bug fixes. VFX. I don't see anything that'll affect gameplay. Jessica Jones' VFX should move with her when she moves to another location. Cards that lose their ability due to Leech no longer get that ability back if they're pulled back into play, so a little bit of a buff for Leech there. Just what Leech needed. Alright, well, overall, their goal, they said, was to nerf Thanos and Shuri. I do think they nerfed Thanos a bit. Won't be the top deck anymore. Now that'll be Shuri. They could have nerfed the stones more. And they could have made Quinjet just not affect the stones, but still affect everything else. And that really would have been cratering Thanos, because I think people were starting to figure out what's good against Thanos. They were starting to figure out that the Hood and Viper together are really good against Thanos, and like Green Goblin. And with the Space Stone change, I think Storm is going to be good against Thanos, since they can't use Space Stone to move a card to Storm's location, the flooded location, anymore. So yeah, they hit Thanos. They also hit decks that are good against Thanos. They didn't hit Shuri, while they did hit decks that were good against Shuri. The Infinite, Moon Girl, Magic, She-Hulk deck, the deck I played to Infinite this season, the Moon Girl, Hood, Titania deck with She-Hulk. The Death Wave got cratered. Wow, did Death Wave get hit hard with the Arrow change and the She-Hulk change. Rip Death Wave. That was probably the best free-to-play deck, and that just got annihilated. I think the top two or 3 maybe free-to-play decks got hit in this patch with the She-Hulk and Arrow changes. What a terrible day to be a player that doesn't want to spend money on this game. That's been the case for like the last 3 patches. But this is so bizarre, this let's nerf Shuri by not nerfing Shuri. And then they just it seems like they just flat out lie about it, like what their logic was. They didn't want to say. Well, okay. So we got a new meta. I'm pretty sad about the Arrow change, to be honest. I was sad about the leader change too. I was sad about the Zabu change, sad about the Silver Surfer change. I'm sad about any change where a Pool 3 card is nerfed, because that makes Pool 4 and 5 cards stronger. And although Thanos and his Space Stone were nerfed this patch, I think that the Quinjet, the She-Hulk, and the Arrow nerfs overall, once again, shift the balance from free-to-play toward pay-to-win. Because the combination of those 3 cards will nerf more Series 3 decks that were good than they nerf the Series 4 or 5 decks that were good. Because Shuri didn't really get hit, and Thanos did, but what got hit along with Thanos was Bounce, Moon Girl decks, and Deathwave. And those are losses for free-to-play players. Those are big losses, so this is well, I'm not, and they didn't buff any cards either. I would like to see some buffs. This is the way that we can expect the game to go in the future, since every patch that I've seen so far has been shifting the balance more toward pay-to-win. Well, let's look at the tier list. So this was the tier list from before the patch. Arrow, we're going to drop down to a C tier. It could even go lower than that. Could be a D tier card. No longer a must-buy card. Red Skull remains one of the best cards in the game. She-Hulk, we can drop probably 1 tier to an A card. I still think it's pretty good. What else was changed? Quinjet. Yeah, we can drop Quinjet from an A card to a B card. Now more or less in line with Sarah. Taskmaster, I don't think the change really hits him that much. He may go to like an A+, maybe. And Death and Wave drop as a consequence of the She-Hulk and Arrow nerfs. And I have some 2-cost cards to place as well that I somehow forgot about when I was doing my original list. I will do that now. We've got Goose. That's a solid B tier card. I like that card a little bit. It was an important card in a deck I played to Infinite this season. We've got Invisible Woman, another B tier card. I think that card is underrated. It's good in more situations than people have figured out yet. Deception is powerful. It doesn't really increase your power on board, but it will increase your cube rate in some situations. I think there are some undiscovered use cases for it. Would not recommending anybody go out and buy it, but I do think that card is underrated. Mojo, another solid B tier card in certain decks. He's not bad. Hazmat, I tried out Hazmat a little bit. I haven't found anything I really liked. It's more of a fun card right now. Like a C tier fun card. Same as Luke Cage. But leaving open the possibility that these cards could really make sense in future decks. Psylocke, kind of a C plus, B minus card. Good in Mr. Negative. Has a place in Galactus. Not really terribly effective outside of those cases. Quake. Occasionally it'll get you an 8 cube win. Most of the time it's not that great. And is there anything else that I missed? Maria Hill, I don't think that card is good. That's going in the D tier. Whoa, what is this? It's a strange glitch. Maria Hill's going in the D tier. I don't think that card is very good. Draws a 1-cost card. Nah. That doesn't make up for it being underpowered for its cost. It adds a random 1-cost card. If it drew a 1-cost card from your deck, it would be very good. But it doesn't do that. Viper, in the Thanos meta, it was probably a B tier card. Now I'd say it's C tier. Why am I getting this graphics glitch? So strange. I'd say it's like a C plus card. B minus. It's very good with the hood. But outside of that case, it's not that good. It was very good against Thanos. Very, very good against Thanos. Almost, I was thinking about a wide variety of decks to use it in. The hood and the Viper combo when Thanos was running the meta. Probably not the case anymore, so it's going to be like a C tier card, I'd say. So I think that's everything, and then we've got 3 new additions to the Series 3. We've got Orca. That's not a very good card. Wouldn't recommend anybody go out and buy that one. It goes up to 614 if it's on a solo lane, but the problem is then the opponent just needs to drop Shang-Chi there and they auto-win that lane, and you'll probably lose 4 or 8 cubes when they do. So Orca, no. It needs to be eligible to be protected by Cosmo or Armor. Kind of the same thing with Attuma, although Attuma I think has more uses than Orca does. Attuma is now Series 3 as well. Attuma I think belongs in the C or B minus tier. It's underrated. It's better than people think it is. It can be good with Zero. It can be good with Armor. It can be quite good with Professor X. That's a card that I'm going to try out some once I get Zero Daredevil and Destroyer. That was one of my Series 4 pulls, unfortunately. It's a C tier, maybe B minus card. How does it compare to Typhoid Mary? I'd say Attuma may be slightly worse, but not a lot worse. Let's put this in very low B tier. C plus, B minus tier, but nothing anybody needs to go out and get right away. And M'Baku, a hilarious card, he's going in the C plus, B minus tier. In certain decks, he does make a lot of sense, and he can, like Quake, he can unexpectedly and hilariously win you a game from time to time. M'Baku from the top rope, but he's not that good on average. But when he does win a game, it's hilarious. So that's the new cards and the ones that I forgot before, and my updated tier list for decks for new players that are new to Series 3. I would say number 1 at the top now is Patriot Ultron. And then after that would be the ongoing Destroyer with Daredevil. Unfortunately, Deathwave has fallen out of contention. That was the best deck for new players entering into Series 3. Now, if you're a free-to-play player, what deck do you go for after you've acquired like your first basic deck as like the next level? Probably something like the deck that I played 2 months ago, the Dracula Lockjaw deck. That one had all Series 3 cards. didn't really get hit by the nerfs at all because it didn't run She-Hulk, did it? No, it didn't run She-Hulk. It did require a lot of Series 3 cards, but none of the cards in that deck got hit by this patch at all. So I think it got a lot better. Just because some of its competitors got hit and it didn't. So I guess something like that is what I would go for, but don't quote me on that because I haven't had a chance to test out the new meta yet. This is just off the top of my head. But I do stand by the Ultron Patriot being good to go for a new player that's new to Series 3, or the Spectrum Ongoing Destroyer deck with Daredevil. Good decks to go for the Pool 3. New players to Pool 3 that'll help you get as high as you can get reasonably. And it is a lot easier to get to Infinite now, like a lot easier. Way, way easier. At least I would say you can cut the time that you need to get into Infinite by half at least, if not by 75%. We'll see where the meta lands, but I'm not a fan of this patch at all. Nerfing Shuri by not nerfing Shuri is just bizarre logic, unless you're just flat out financially motivated. In which case, you know, you can just say that. I mean, other card games that I've played, Hearthstone, pay to win to a certain extent, Star Wars CCG, ridiculously pay to win. Magic the Gathering, I never played, but I know it's pay to win. All card games are. You don't have to lie about it. But anyway, this is the new situation, and we'll see where the meta lands. I hope at least we see some new decks, but Shuri's still going to be very strong. So, thank you for watching.